So Tanya Blount is one of those singers who should have blown up, but did not. And do you know who we have to thank for this once again? Diddy allegedly. She also refused to party the way Diddy wanted her to party. And just like many other artists who were hit with the bad boy cars, she ended up broke child. It's a lot happening with Tanya, and as always, I will be breaking it all down. Okay, just for a bit of background about how she got into the industry. Tanya was born to an AFR, Panamanian mother and an African American father. And she attended Baptist services on Sundays and attended Catholic school, where she sang in the choir. She also attended Morgan State University, where she majored in psychology, and also sang in the university choir. Now, for those who recall, Tanya came to prominence in the film Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit, in which she featured as the character Tanya, and her performance of His Eyes on the Sparrow with Lauryn Hill was a particularly notable moment. In fact, according to Tanya, that movie is what really changed her life.
Tanya Trotter, formerly Tanya Blount, that was my name when I did Sister Act 2, and my name in the movie was simply Tanya. Oh my God! Oh, are you? Yeah. Changed my whole life, you know that. I can't.
Other than the remarkable performance in Sister Act, Tanya was actually doing pretty well for herself, because her debut album Natural Thing was released in 1994 and peaked at number 58 on the US R&B/hip hop albums chart, and the album's first single, I'm Going to Make You Mine, peaked at number 57 on the US R&B/hip hop songs chart. Through the Rain followed peeing at number 26.7 on the US R&B/hip hop songs chart, and became her first appearance on the US Hot 100, where it peaked at number 90. And the third single, Hold On, peaked at number 66 on the US R&B/hip hop songs chart. In 1994, Tanya also released a holiday single titled Remember, Love, and in 1995, she received a nomination for Best New Artist at the Soul Train Music Awards. Naturally, this was someone a lot of record labels wanted to sign, including Bad Boy, and I don't know what Diddy said to Tanya. But in 1996, Tanya signed to Bad Boy Entertainment and started the recording of her second album, writing for herself and other Bad Boy artists. I know that if she knew that Diddy was going to screw her over, she would not have signed with Bad Boy, but because there are contracts involved in such things, she ended up being stuck with someone who literally destroyed her career. Well, Tanya herself said that in the beginning, Diddy was involved in the second album. But after some time, interest in the album flagged, and as a result, although years passed, only 2 songs I Love Him and The Last Time We Made Love were released. For someone who had released songs back-to-back before signing to Bad Boy, it was truly a huge disappointment for Tanya to release 2 songs after so many years. Tanya was also included on the label's Gospel LP alongside artists Big Faith Evans, Brandy Carl Thomas, John P. Key, Brian McKnight, Voice to Men, and Total. And while talking about that particular album, Tanya said, I think Puppy is looking for a different way to go. He feels a responsibility to the big Willies and hustlers to understand a lot of people from the streets have a strong background in church. Maybe it's time to send the message that they can party and still love Jesus. This album was originally scheduled for release in 1997, but it was shelved indefinitely, meaning she did not have anything released from Bad Boy. So what really happened there? Why did Diddy sign her only for him to end up destroying her career? I mean, she was really promising. If you ask a lot of people, well, apparently Titten wanted to explore more with her career. But Diddy was not given the space or the opportunity to do that at all. Bad Boy only wanted her to do things their way, and it really frustrated her. In fact, while talking about the darkest moment of her career, this is what Tanya said: when I realized that I did not want to do a deal, and I walked away from it. We had just recorded about 50 to 60 songs at Arista Records with Sean Combs. Everyone knows him as Diddy or Love. Now, I remember going to the studio and telling my manager, I don't want to do this. I want a different style of music and legacy. Why can't we blend all these styles of music that I grew up listening to? Why do I have to do this? In order to make it, I want to record something completely different. It was the hardest decision because that was How I was able to provide and take care of my family at the time, it was so hard it broke me, it really did. I went into therapy with uniliving thoughts and even attempted to take my life, but it shaped me at the same time after. Realizing that she had no future at Bad Boy, Tanya started pursuing a release from her contract with Bad Boy Entertainment and started negotiating a settlement. Unfortunately for Tanya, it was not easy, and things became so bad because, for some reason, the curse of Bad Boy Entertainment tends to follow artists even after they leave the label, and for her it was so bad that she even became homeless. But we all know that Tanya is not the only artist Diddy screwed over, right? Remember how we did Craig Mack?
Craig Mack went to his grave mad at Bad Boy. Craig Mack told his people, told the religious people that don't let them pay for shit of mine. I don't want them to pay for nothing in my death. You gotta be mad at them.
Despite Diddy saying that Craig was part of the foundation of Bad Boy in 1995, Craig left the label with word on the street being that it was because of what he went through when he was part of the label. In fact, because of what he went through, Craig didn't even want Diddy at his funfair, and he didn't want Bad Boy contributing anything. There was also Mace, who after being ruined by Bad Boy resurfaced as a preacher, saying that if the devil can use Diddy for his work, God can also use him to counter Diddy.
If the devil can use him aggressively, then I want you to know God can use me aggressively. I want you to also know you may not like my delivery. You might say, well, listen here, why did you say it that way? I cannot speak to people outside of the church the way I speak to people inside the church. I gotta know my audience. Isn't that what you would say if you're talking to a people? The first thing you gotta know is your audience. And I also want you to know that the thing that's really stirring up so much confusion is because for years, these guys have organized a mass organized effort to slander my name behind the scenes. So every time I say something, you're just seeing my part because their part is behind the scenes.
Speaking of people turning to religion after Bad Boy, another person who followed the same route was Loon. In addition, Carl Thomas said the reason why he left Bad Boy Records was because when his brother died, Diddy called him a week later and asked him when he was returning to the studio because he had some hits for him. And he didn't even consider that his artist was still mourning the loss of his brother. There was also Little Jerome, who also had a very promising future. But somehow Bad Boy also managed to ruin it for him when he was asked if it was his choice to leave the label. Jerome said, well, it's just a mixture of the growing pains and the pressure of the music business. I had a nervous breakdown, and it was in Puffy's best interest to not keep the project in short. It wasn't his choice to leave the label, but more of a result of circumstances. According to Lil Jerome, he actually had about a good 13 songs ready for an album to come out before he had a nervous breakdown.
Reflux, I think. Nobody really knew for sure what was going on because, I went to a doctor and he kind of like examined, he put stuff down in my nose. He gave me all kinds of medication. He said it was allergies and he didn't know. And then later on, actually, it wasn't until I got released from Bad Boy that I found out that it was reflux. So nobody knew what it was. I didn't know. My dad didn't know. The company didn't know. And the album just never came out. And eventually I did have a nervous breakdown.
Then there was also Day 26 that was handpicked by Diddy. And while talking about their experience, Willie Taylor accused Diddy's making the band of setting up artists for failure. He said making the band was an experience for sure, but the platform and contracts were all set up for the failure of hungry talents, learning experience. You got to understand that people will do to you whatever you allow them. So don't let your passion drive you to the wrong destination. #MTB for Day 26, Denani Decane are talented groups, but the situation in which we met was designed to fail. So yeah, Tanya's experience at Bad Boy was not new at all. Hers is just one of the many careers that Diddy managed to ruin. And when it comes to Tanya, I've had people say that Diddy was also interested in her. Because she didn't want to party, Diddy also frustrated her life and made sure she was miserable. And I know that she was invited to the parties, because when the allegations against Diddy came up, Tanya spoke about them during a new episode of Bunixo's Dumlon podcast and said, quote, "Everything has good and bad. I'm really appalled with the stuff I'm hearing about now. I had protection too. I was young, but I had a manager who told me, no, you're not going to that party. I also had God protecting me from whatever was happening. The people who experienced it, I really feel bad for them." While Tanya was trying to find her footing, she eventually also met her husband, Michael Trotter. And although her career didn't become as big as it should have, at least she got something out of it courtesy of her boo, Mr. Trotter. As for how this relationship even came about, Michael grew up in Cleveland and Washington, D.C., spending time as a child in homeless shelters. Eventually, he found refuge in the music of Ray Charles, Johnny Cash, and Harry Belafonte, but it wasn't until he served in the Army during the Iraq War that he discovered his calling after his commanding officer died. He was asked to write and perform songs to honor his unit's fallen hero. And that's how he found his calling after returning from his service and launching a career in music. Michael Trotter met Tanya Blount at a festival where both were performing, and after seeing him play, Tanya ran across the field in foreign heels and was like, "Who is this guy? I have to know who he is." At the time they exchanged numbers, he lost her phone number, but she found his number and called him Tanya then. Later invited Trotter to collaborate on a project with her and her brother. And as they trained vocally, apparently there was something happening that they both were trying to deny.